Aritake no yume wo kakiatsume Sakashimono wo sagashi ni yuku no sa Poketo no coin So that's who you wanna be, my friend. We are on the cruise! We are!
Oh my god!
It's time to start this madness.
What is psycho?
That's me, a psychopath who almost knocked over a table full of glass bottles, moving his chair over.
I can't right now. What are you doing? You be doing too.
So here I am, in my bathrobe, absolutely not giving a shit, because this series doesn't give a shit. Welcome back to the Pirate Odyssey. We're talking about episode 4 of the live-action adaptation. And it's awful. And the editor for the series can feel free to put like any music that he wants over top of that like shitty thing if he wants. I don't know. It's fine.
I feel sorry for the editor. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
He can have fun with it. If he wants. So it's been a hot minute, especially since I rewatched this episode, but also we had a break in the week for the holidays.
Yes.
And where we left off is the second of the Syrup Village episodes. So
yeah, and it took me 2 days to watch this episode because
you
I
told me
hated
earlier
it.
you fell asleep watching it.
Yeah, literally last night I fell asleep watching it. Like I felt awake and then like I fell asleep and I woke up. The lights were on. Like I hadn't even brushed my teeth. Like I didn't wear my bonnet. Like
Your bonnet? You English? You have a hat?
Yeah, look. Let me show you. That's my bonnet.
All right.
Yeah.
I also found out over the holidays that my siblings apparently don't think that this show is that bad, and quite frankly, they're just wrong. Objectively, it's terrible in so many ways.
It is. I told you have to get new siblings. You just gotta trade them out for ones with better taste.
I also need to adjust your cropping because you were like on the left side of the image. Oops. That's whatever. It's cropping. It's easy clap. All right.
Okay.
So apparently, in the beginning of the episode, it starts off with a scene with the Marines. I believe at this point in time, I don't remember. Since you watched it more recently, Zoro is at least out of the building, right? He got tossed down the well.
Yes.
Luffy has not been taken out of the building yet, I don't think.
Not yet. He's still passed out in the kitchen.
Yeah. So the Marines are like walking up to the mansion to assess the situation, chasing after Luffy, so to speak.
Yeah.
And Helmeppo is very much a dick. And that's a problem in the live action series. Because unlike in actual One Piece, he doesn't grow or change from being a dick.
Mm-hmm. Very stagnant.
Yeah, it's just totally missing. And on one hand, it's fair because it's not supposed to happen yet. The cutaway to Kobe and Helmeppo learning under Garp happens after the Straw Hats enter the Grand Line, and at the very least after Logtown. But I have to ask the question: if him growing and changing is not supposed to happen yet, then why are we having the Marines doing anything at all? Why is Garp
here? True. Because it just feels useless, honestly.
In addition to the fact, I'm thinking about it now, all of the Marine stuff feels very geared towards the same kind of learning arc that Helmeppo goes through in the original series. Mm-hmm. But it just doesn't happen here. You have all of the building blocks of, like, oh, Kobe is being a more dedicated worker, he's trying harder, he's pursuing his dream. But Helmeppo is just kind of like, you suck, Kobe. I'm better than you. And just the entire time.
Yeah. He's like, he's like, oh, Garp is using you, and like Garp didn't give me this order. He only gave you this order, so I'm gonna do what I want.
He's being a brat, and there's no like conversation about him telling him off for being a brat, or there's no like introspection on his end. You don't see anything from the character acting or the dialogue that indicates like, oh, maybe I should be better.
And I feel like there's nothing from Kobe either. Like he always has like this kind of worried expression on his face, and you can't really tell if he's being introspective about the whole issue either. Like he does kind of think to himself like, should I be here? Should I be doing this? But he just kind of goes with the flow. Like he doesn't really put up any resistance to the idea of capturing Luffy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I do have to say, now that you mention it, the actor for Kobe just has the same expression on their face, like the entire time they're on screen. It doesn't feel like there's any differentiation between their like nervous, neurotic, worried look on their face, which is fair to have. Like it's a good face for that point in Kobe's like personality and life. But you don't see any marketed improvement towards like a more serious and determined or lackadaisical Kobe.
Right. And like he always seems just like on edge, even with Garp. Like the Garp scenes before, like showing him like how to be a better Marine and like him improving, but we don't see any of that improvement in this episode. And in this episode, it seems like Garp is kind of using Kobe as a pawn. It seems like the way the episode kind of ended. So it's like, what was the improvement for?
Well,
what was all this training for?
I won't dig that much on it because like yes, Garp was using Kobe as a pawn, but in a way to like elicit some growth out of him. That from a writing whatever perspective. But I feel like there's nothing in the dialogue or the acting to indicate that there's any sort of genuine improvement. Apologize if any loud banging comes through on the microphone. I actually have no idea what happening in my house. Crazy uncle. And this is one of the benefits of manga and animation, that you can have way more distinct and hyper exaggerated facial expressions to show these kinds of things. But it's not as if filmmakers have failed to do it with live action in the past over 100 years that they've been making films.
Right, and there are so many good actors and actresses, man, who really nail the facial expressions. So I'm just like, what happened? I don't know if he was, I don't know, maybe it was just like the direction he was given wasn't very good, which I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, with most of the other characters, it feels very much so like a writing and direction issue.
Right.
Which leads me to believe that that's probably the case here too, but it's not as clear cut, because it does sometimes feel like the acting is also just kind of bad.
Yeah. For everybody all the way around. But Helmeppo, he at least, the actor who plays him is a little bit...
Yeah, I like Helmeppo's actor.
Right, he's great. And he does have a lot more facial expressions. He's a lot more like animated, and he really does the character very well. So I do like his acting. But like the chemistry, he has no chemistry with Kobe. It seems like he's kind of trying on his end, but like Kobe is just like kind of floating in the wind, just
I don't know, on the water of the oceans of life in One Piece, because it's a water world.
Yeah, and just kind of being pushed around by the story, it feels like. So
Um, so they then cut after whatever happens in that marine scene to the uh, Bucci and I forget the name of the other person, Kuro's subordinates, discovering Luffy passed out after eating the food. And this is like a
Hmm.
minor thing to say, but Babuchi says he ate all of it while looking directly at a pot with like leftover goop inside of it, which
Yeah,
would
yeah.
which this is less so a minor nitpick, but that would still have poison in it. That would still have traces of poison that would be detectable by like the Marines and other police forces that they would then be able to like extrapolate what actually occurred. So it's not like
Yeah.
because that's the thing. They said he ate all of it as though it got rid of all of the evidence, but it definitely didn't because he didn't eat all of it, and even if he did eat all of it, there would still be poison left over in the pot, like traced on the surface of the
And the
pot.
cooking utensils.
Yeah, so it's stupid.
Yeah, I didn't really like that either. And then like I think Nami's in the cupboard at this point, right? Like she's
Yeah, she's eavesdropping.
yeah.
Um,
And what was I gonna say? And then it even seems like the Marines kind of stopping by. I don't know if we're there yet. I can't. I'm forgetting the pace of the
not
story because I
quite
was just
yet. Not quite.
okay. Not quite. Okay, I'll wait then.
Because the when the Marines stop by is like after they tell, or it's like shortly after that, so they can bring the body to the door. But I think, I mean, based on my notes, at least, they cut away to a scene with Usopp meeting Kuro first, but maybe they get rid of Usopp first. Um, I don't know. Say what you
I
want
don't
to say.
remember.
You're the one who watched it
Yeah,
more recently than me.
yeah. I was gonna say that like again, it just feels so awkward because I was like, shouldn't the Marines have the authority to kind of like investigate inside the house to see what's going on?
Oh,
Like it just
I
seems.
actually do write that down. I say that Kobe is more respectful of the Fourth Amendment than actual cops because you do in America have a right against unreasonable search and seizure, which is in this case Kuro is actually in the right. In telling them that they don't that they can't investigate the house or he doesn't want them to. That they would
Yeah,
need a warrant first that tells them they have like a reasonable reason to investigate the house. But of course, in real life, cops are way less adherent to the Fourth Amendment than Kobe is. But Kobe's a good cop. See, good. There are good cops. That means that like cops aren't bad because some of them are good.
yeah. Apparently, ugh. And it's just like again, it's just like Kobe seems like the worst person to send in for this kind of mission. Maybe
Because
because it
well, I mean,
he's
Garp's
just so naive. I guess I don't
yeah.
know. Like
I mean, Garp says at the end that the point was to flush Luffy out rather than actually capture him. But
mm,
so he kind of like I guess used Kobe's prior relationship with Luffy and his inexperience and naivety like to accomplish this. But at the same time,
yeah, yeah.
Garp doesn't know what's going on the island. He doesn't know that Kuro is there. So
Mhm.
I don't know. It feels it like technically works, but it doesn't feel smart. It,
Yeah, exactly. It
it,
doesn't feel smart.
it
And
doesn't
so like
feel
I'm caught.
intelligently written.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And so I was just like whatever, like I'm just not fully invested in this storyline of the Marines, I guess.
Well, yeah, because they're not supposed to be here.
Yeah. And but I'm like you could have made it more interesting for me. Like I said with kind of like live actions or like if we were making like books and stuff, I don't mind these kind of things that are slipped in if it's done properly.
Yeah,
And this is
like
just not done properly.
I have problems with the structural changes that they did to the plot of the series.
I feel like
But
it's all over the place.
there are problems all over the place. But it's not as though they necessarily can't work because they're stupid ideas on paper. And I could see why they would make some of these decisions to try and clump more things together and make it so that people don't feel. One of the reasons they cut between different characters or in circumstances a lot is so that people don't feel too like bogged down in a particular person's
Hmm.
episodes. It breaks up the pacing. I can see why they made these changes on paper, but they didn't adequately write around the changes to make them
Right.
work. In addition to like why would you have something against having an episode dedicated to a particular character for the entire episode? I love the show The Witcher, and in season 3, I think it's the second to last episode. The entire episode is just Ciri like walking in the desert on her own. The entire episode, and it's great. Um, it's not necessarily my favorite episode because not a whole lot happens in it, but like they write, they make the episode about the character and what she has been going through and where she intends to go from where she is and like how fucking awful it is to be in the desert. And one of the ways you accentuate that the feeling of that circumstance is having it be the entire episode. So you feel in one fashion or another the same way the character does of like, oh my god, I'm still in this fucking desert.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with having an hour dedicated to a single character if you write it correctly. And wouldn't you know it, the original series for One Piece does it correctly. It has entire arcs dedicated to a like focus of this is the arc and this is what's happening in the arc. And it's only
Yeah.
after the arc and in between the arcs that they show some amount of chapters or some amount of episodes of something else that would have been happening at the same time, or as like a bridge connects them or like shows the rest of the world. And one of the ways it also works better in the manga is that Oda does the cover arcs, so it doesn't feel like it's taking away from like what he's trying to show
The
while
actual
still showing you
story.
something in parallel. But the anime adapts the cover arcs by making them their own sets of episodes after arcs as opposed to
Hmm.
during, and it works brilliantly because that's how it's intended to be consumed for a reason. And then the live action just throws that all out the window to show everything all at once without changing the writing in a smart way to compensate for that. That was way more
Yeah.
long-winded and ranty than I expected it to be.
No, the way you explained it explained why I felt the way I felt. Way better than I could have explained it. So I do appreciate that.
As long as I did a good job.
Yes, you did. Because I was just like, I don't like it.
I don't like it, man. It sucks.
It sucks, bro. So yeah.
So another complete and utter failure in Syria Village arc is not having Usopp hit Kuro for making fun of his dad. It's so quintessential to Usopp's character for him to lash out at his dad being belittled because he looks up to his dad for being a pirate and a free person, and he's like, shut the fuck up. And you're just missing that from Usopp's character by not having him do that. I forget what particular scene I wrote this down for.
And it seems like in the live action that Usopp's like, oh, cool, Luffy, you knew my dad. But that's it. He's not like super attached to his dad, it seems like.
Kind of. I mean, you get it. It's far more implicit in the live action through the idea of him like shouting the pirates are coming because his dad was a pirate and
and his mother
dying to
but then the actor was bad and
the actor was bad. But that aside, children bad acting, that aside, It's a
But
little bit more implicit because you don't have a scene like him hitting Kuro for making fun of his dad, which is very important to understanding who Usopp is as a character.
right, and then it's further manipulation Kuro does with Kaya as well, because Kuro's like, oh, you see, like Usopp's like a barbarian, he's like an animal.
Yes,
you
that's
know?
also true. Kuro then, because Kuro did that deliberately, he antagonized Usopp deliberately so as to manipulate Kaya into being on his side. Like
Yeah.
it's so smart when you think about it for 5 seconds, and the live
Like
action
I
is
wrote
so dumb when you think about it for another 5 seconds.
I wrote a whole page basically about the
You wrote
scene
your own
of
essay.
about Usopp and Kaya, like that bedroom scene where he's trying to pull her out. Oh my god, that made me so mad.
It
Which
is
will come, which it
his
kind of
choice.
connects to the like Usopp's dad being belittled. It connects to that.
Yeah.
Because which I do like Kaya and Usopp's actors. They have great chemistry. I will say that. They
Yeah.
do work really well together.
Yeah. I also wrote
And
down. Oh, keep going.
okay. And I'm trying to think, okay, where does it, okay. And in the manga, like whenever Usopp shows up in her room and he's like, "Oh my god, like, Kuro's a pirate. He's like really bad." And she's like, "If you're doing this to get back at what is his name? Like Claudor,
Clawdor.
like yeah, like it's not funny. Like you know, you shouldn't maliciously lie like this." And he's like, but like she's like, "Why would you sink so low to lie about him like that? Like it's not funny." And he's like, "I'm not lying." And then the guards come in the manga, and he's like kicking and biting, and we see from Kaya's point of view that Usopp looks crazy to her. You know, she doesn't understand what's going on, like why he's acting the way he's acting.
Oh
And
yeah,
he's
it's
kicking and
so
biting
toned
them.
down in this one.
Yeah, and he's like using his slingshot and to take them down. And then he's like, "Okay, well, I guess I'll have to use force to get you out of here." And so he grabs her, and that's when she slaps him. And she says, "You are a dastardly villain." And it's the same words that that Usopp had said about Kuro. Usopp had said Kuro is a dastardly villain, and so she calls
I
Usopp a
didn't even
dastardly
notice
villain.
that.
And it hurts, bro. That
Yeah.
hurts in the manga. Like you really feel for them.
Yeah.
And instead, in the live action, we just get this
I'm just
one-on-one
sitting.
conversation.
The problem that I wrote down in it is what comes after that confrontation.
Mhm.
In that, well, first of all, Kaya isn't like crying from him freaking out so bad,
Yeah.
because she feels so betrayed, I guess.
Mhm.
But furthermore, is no Usopp like giving up on that avenue of protecting her through the means of like pretending like, oh, it was a lie all along, but I'm good. And then he strikes out on his own to make it as though the events were a lie. He intends on
Yeah.
keeping it that way, to show it's
Mhm.
like, fine, if you won't believe me because I've been lying my whole life, then I'm going to just have it that way. I'm gonna be like the better person, so to speak. He's gonna man up, I guess. But in this,
Yeah, and
he
he's gonna
stays
like
with her.
yeah, he like makes peace that like, okay, I've made my bed and now I'm gonna lie in it. But I'm still gonna make the situation right at the end of the day.
Yeah. But in this case, he's like, and furthermore, he's in a sense respecting Kaya's wishes by running away from her, because she's like, stop forcefully having me run away, even though he has her best interests at heart in doing so.
Yeah.
Um, but in this case, she told him to fuck off, and he's like, "No, I'm just gonna stay here, and you can't do anything about it."
Literally, and she's just like, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, she can't do anything about it, so it's
And
just, it sucks.
like in the manga, in the manga too, it shows them as kids, like right before this. It shows them as kids talking. And and Usopp says like she's like, who are you? What are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I'm just here to talk. Like I'm just here. I just want to be your friend. And that's how they make that connection, is through his stories and through his friendship. And it would have been really nice to kind of put that in there to show that they have this long running connection and this bond, and now all of a sudden it's being severed. I mean, it's just, we don't really get the depth of their relationship, you know. I feel like, anyways, we don't get that depth.
No,
It's like
it's not there.
instead it's just like it's like it's like in the manga, it's a show don't tell, and in this case it's like telling you, it's spelling their
Well,
relationship out to you.
Even then, it's not really telling you.
Yeah, it's just like they're friends, they have a relationship. Usopp has lied to her. Wow, this is bad. And it's like, no, show me the drama.
It's missing the heart. There's no
Yes.
heart. There's no soul.
Yes.
I miss Soul Piece.
Yes.
I can't wait
Like
to be over. We can get back to Soul Piece.
yes, and if anything, it really makes me appreciate Oda's storytelling and his writing.
Oh yeah.
So like, okay, there's a plus for the live action, I guess.
It makes me think there has to be something to be said for somebody who writes their story almost independently. I mean, Oda has some editors, I'm sure, that provide input on certain things that they think like doesn't work or whatever. But it's still Oda's writing and his art at the end of the day. His story that he's crafting. Whereas this live action adaptation is a far bigger product, and it's got a lot more people involved, and it's got a team of writers. It's not it morphs Oda's individual vision into something that's into a collective vision. And I don't see the same level of intention and heart and cohesion and passion for the live action that you do in One Piece. And I think there's something to be said about the differences between an individual's story versus a collective's story.
Right, and I do think that is true, and especially when it's coming from such a big production value, I'm sure there's a lot bigger stakes in it, and so you want to play it kind of safe and maybe not take such big risk in storytelling. But
they
like,
didn't have to play it safe though. One Piece is one of the most popular manga of all time.
Exactly.
Even if it was bad, everybody was still gonna fucking watch it.
Well, I mean, it was bad, and everybody
still fucking watched it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just people think that it's good for some reason.
People be delusional, bro. Like, and so that just like, that just made me really disappointed, because that's such a great scene. Like, God, it's so good in the manga and in the anime, and they just messed up. And then also in that scene, she tells Usopp, I loved your lies. They were beautiful lies, and like, we don't get that. We don't get that in the live action.
So little soul. All right, moving on. Yeah, another comment that I had before that scene was in regards to the poison again, is that this is when the Marines take Luffy from Klahadore. It's like, if he dies from poison, that would also be incriminating, because like they think that he's dead or going to die from the poison. They make it out to be like he died from overeating. And the Marines, the Marines are just gonna accept that.
They're just like, okay, let's go. Like, what?
You would know if the person died from poison, and people have a tendency to not die from overeating because there's preventative mechanisms in your body to, stop it from you from dying from overeating, and your stomach expands quite a lot even when you're not made of rubber.
And especially when you're Luffy.
Yes.
So it's just
It's a massive glaring plot hole. Like they made the poison thing into just a massive plot hole for no reason. It was such an avoidable thing to not have a plot hole.
and it's just like Kuro with 1,000 plans. I'm like, Kuro with like 1,000. Do you have to have 1,000
Kuro
plans
with
because your first like
1,000 plot
600
holes.
suck?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's I'm just like, okay. I mean, it could have been better, but whatever. I guess we're rolling with this, and I guess the Marines are just stupid enough to believe it. Okay.
Yeah. We also get I I once again want to go back to the whole thing of like splitting up different characters' scenes throughout the episode,
Mhm.
because one thing that would have been much better to do is to make Zolo's backstory all at once instead of splitting it up over the course of the episode as you just periodically cut to him climbing out of a well.
Like Batman.
Its own stupid thing for a different reason. Yeah, Batman. Just show it all at once. Give us all of the deets on why Zolo feels the way he does and why his dream is the way it is. Instead of cutting up the drama so that you're constantly given, I don't want to say whiplash because it's not frequent enough to be whiplash, but like you're taken out of the moment of a lot of scenes way too quickly for you to adequately take in the drama that is supposed to be conveyed by those scenes.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't I will say that the child actors for the flashbacks, they were better.
They
That
were
bad.
probably the best kid actors.
They were.
Actually, since I haven't rewatched the second 4 episodes yet, Sanji's child actor might be better as well. I don't fully remember.
I'll have to
But
rewatch you.
yeah, but Zolo and
But
Kumina's actors were not that bad.
Zoro's kid actor has the spunk that Zolo adult
Yes.
Zolo was missing.
Yes, that is true. The child Zolo was actually pretty on point.
Yeah. And even Queena, like her facial expressions were so good. I loved her facial expressions, you know.
Yeah. I'm going to be extremely petty though and say that she has a big nose.
Making fun of a girl's nose, bro. We about to fight, okay? Like,
well,
no.
the camera didn't help because it's always in people's faces.
That is true. Okay, that is true. Like, like, please, like, if I'm ever on screen, just don't zoom in on my forehead, okay? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's not a good criticism to make fun of her nose because it's like it's her nose. There's nothing she could do about that. I wrote it down just because it's funny. But also, if you have a feature like that, perhaps you don't want the camera constantly in the person's face to make it super like glaring, distractingly obvious.
Yeah.
Because quite honestly, I was thinking about it like way more than I would for any other actor's like biological conditions. It's a bad way of putting it.
Like facial features or like
features.
Because usually you want to aim the camera like at their most
their good side.
Yeah, their good side, their best angles. Like I'm not going to take a picture where like the majority of my forehead is showing. Like, sorry, I got a big forehead. Like I'm not doing that, you know? So like, yeah. It's just so I get it. I was kind of thinking of her nose too, but like I wasn't gonna say anything because I'm not rude, okay?
Yeah, I am rude though.
Yes, we know. You have no filter.
Yeah. So I lodged this complaint in my initial review of the series as well, where I was far more kind to it.
Hmm.
But Zolo climbing out of the well is not really analogous to his backstory, but they edit it as though it is.
That man could get out of the well in 2 seconds. Come on.
He couldn't find the grip, man. He could survive the fall, where he would likely land on his head and or neck, but he can't. He can't climb out. Right? It's too slippery.
Yeah, and yeah, and they do make it out like this is such a big moment, and he's got to
Yeah.
like get the
He's
resolve
like,
to climb out of the well, and he's got
I
to
need the resolve to get out of this well. The same
like
way I
like
need the resolve to become the world's greatest swordsman. I feel like these
uh,
two things are not equal.
yeah, they're not, and then like he's thinking of the death of his best friend, the death of his rival, and getting out of the well.
Getting out of the well so that he can go murder somebody entirely unrelated.
Yeah, to me that would have been best. That flashback would have been best for like a villain, like fighting a really bad guy, like but instead they put it, or maybe like in its own episode. So they put it like in this super weird spot, and then there's like this motivational music behind him getting out of the well, and he like slips and falls. He's got to get up again, and like
Get out of the well, man. Gotta get out of the well.
it's just so intense, and I'm just
Yeah.
like I'm bored. I think we were laughing so hard. And what did I say when we watched it together? I was like oh like he's having such a hard time because he can't hear the rocks or something like that. I was just making a joke.
Oh, because you were making fun of the breathing thing before.
Yeah. Yeah, because that one episode he's like, I can hear the steel or
Yeah,
something like
that's
that.
how you can cut through the seal, which it's a good moment. Don't make fun of it. But it is good ammunition to use to make fun of this moment.
That's
And
funny.
that comparison to Batman, it's been a long time since I've watched. I think it's The Dark Knight Rises, in which he does the
Yeah.
thing where he climbs out of the prison. But there's like a lot more to that scene. His back had
Oh
been
yeah.
broken. His like determination, to an extent, had been broken by Bane before that. And it and they don't try to compare it to the reason he became Batman in the first place.
Yeah, because we already know.
Yeah, it's entire.
They put it in another good spot. Like,
well, they put it in a different movie because that was the third movie.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But it's not, doesn't really matter. The point is that the circumstances around him climbing out of the prison are far more, or are directly intended to be about the reason why he got in the prison in the first place. Like,
Mhm.
they keep it contained to those circumstances because it doesn't make sense to relate it to different circumstances. They're not going to relate him climbing out of the well to his confrontations with Joker because he's not him climbing out of the prison, because him climbing out of the prison is not related to the Joker. It's related to Bane. So they make it about they make it about him overcoming the wall that is Bane for him.
Right. Yeah.
And if Kuro was presented in the same vein as Bane was in that movie, as an obstacle for Zoro to overcome on his way to the world's greatest swordsman, and they made him climbing out of the well related to that, although I still think it would have been kind of silly, but it at least would have worked a lot better.
Right. Yeah.
In
Yeah.
this case,
I
they were just
think
kind
it would
of
have been.
using it as like an excuse to sort of connect what's currently happening to the backstory, when you just don't need to do that, because the way that One Piece does it is they show you Zoro's entire backstory before Syrup Village.
Yeah. And then like the way like you know, in the backstory they have like Quina and Zolo like fighting with like real swords, and then all of a sudden she blurts out like, "You're gonna get bigger and stronger than me because like a man, you know, like a girl can beat a boy, but like a man can never beat a woman." And I'm like, that is so random, girl. What are you doing? And so it just feels like such an odd place to put it. I
Your
like in the
camera froze,
manga.
by the way.
hold on. Let me try. Okay,
Oh,
did it?
there it
Okay,
is.
is it working again?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
back.
okay. So like the way it works in the manga and anime, I think is she overhears her because like she wants to inherit the dojo,
Yeah, she
and
overhears her dad talking about how he wants to give the inheritance to like a man or something to that effect prior to her duel with Zoro.
yeah, and so like she hears that her dad's a misogynist, you know, and
And
so
she's a
that makes
child, so
sense.
she adopts the same worldview.
Yeah, so it makes sense to for her to think that after she fights with Zolo.
Yeah, because that's
But
what
in
she was thinking about during their duel.
Yeah, but instead in the live action, they put it just randomly. She blurts this out without us hearing about the dojo and her dad, and it's just weird. It's just a weird place to put it in, you know?
Yeah. Um.
I think they should have just left it out
Yeah.
if they weren't gonna connect it with her father.
Yeah.
Honestly.
That comes in the second time they cut into the backstory, and I wrote some stuff
Hmm.
about that a little bit later.
Oh yeah. Oh
That's
yeah, because it's
not entirely
yeah,
related to what you were saying, so we'll come
yeah.
back to it in a moment.
Okay.
Um, so apparently, so the plot to kill Gaia is like they have to wait until she's an adult or till she's 18 so that like the transfer of her assets goes to her that and then they can then go to Kuro, I guess. um and
Weird.
the way they do it in the original series, it makes sense. They have to have her sign off on a document that explicitly states all of my inheritance goes to Clahador in the case of my death.
Which
But
makes
in
sense.
this case, the clock strikes midnight, and now they could just kill her.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm like, so okay, so now that she's an adult, you can just kill her and randomly the assets transfer to him when he has no kind of no like biological relationship to her.
Yeah, but like, and there's also like a difference between if you kill her at 11 or if you kill her at past midnight. I I
Yeah,
I don't see the thought process there. Kuro of the my thousand plans all suck.
they all suck. They're all terrible. This is why he needs 1,000 plans,
Yeah,
like we said.
yeah, like there were certainly flaws in various respects to Kuro's plan in the original series, but it feels brilliant in comparison to this.
Oh yeah, because I think we did complain about Kuro in the anime, review. Like we did complain about him a little bit.
Yeah,
So.
there's some minor stuff to nitpick about his plan there, but it's
Mhm.
not nearly as dumb as this.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a lot of and the reveal of him being a bad guy in the original series is so much better too. And not not the reveal, but when he shows up at the beach to monologue about his feelings on the matter, that sort of like this is my villain moment
Mhm.
is much better in the original series than it is in the live action too. um they have him show a lot more, I guess, like frustration in the live action, whereas in the original series it's a lot more like devious and menacing and
Right.
malicious. And he's like, I
Mhm.
want to fucking kill all of you, as opposed to it felt like he was crying in the live action when he was complaining about Kaya like ordering him around as a butler. It seemed like he was crying because he was being mistreated. He's like, why are you telling me to get your tea?
I hate it.
it,
I
it,
have to brush your hair.
it, it, it's it is petty, you could say, to as somebody who is hired to be a butler to complain about being told to be butler do butler things. but like the pettiness that he displays in the live action is just off the charts.
So petty.
It's
He is like, it reminds me of like very low effort, low budget horror movies and like the crazy like psycho stepmoms in horror movies. That's what it reminds me of.
yeah. In the original series, his plan is to get the assets to become like have like a normalish, relaxing life. But in the
Yeah.
original series, that is consistently feels like the intent, whereas in the live action, when he gets to that moment where he monologues about it, it feels like it became something born out of petty revenge because of the way that
Yeah.
they had him. I guess the way it was written and the way they had him acted out, it was just like, God damn, why are you
And then
crying about it? It's so pathetic.
and then he says something like, "We can finally be our true selves." And I'm like, "Okay, sis. Go off, I guess."
It comes across as so pathetic as opposed to menacing.
Yeah, it's just I'm like, "Okay, sis. Do you, boo-boo."
I
And he doesn't feel and then like in I remember saying later on in the anime when we reviewed the anime like all the villains in One Piece, I hate all of them. They're all awful, devious human beings.
Oda is
Like,
so effective at
yes,
giving you villains who are menacing and malicious, and you hate them.
conniving.
They're conniving. They're awful. Um, whereas
He's petty. He's just a petty
yeah,
girl.
they don't come across as strong in the live action. Even Arlong, who he has everything going for him just from pure building blocks perspective of like, here you are, just from the backstory alone, regardless of how it's presented, you would despise this person.
Yeah,
Um, but it's not conveyed nearly as well as
weak.
the original series.
You, yeah, because you hate Arlong because he's such an abusive POS, man, and he just don't feel like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
And
want.
Kuro, and like Kuro, he's willing to like in the anime, he's like willing to kill off his own men, and his
Oh
men
yeah,
are
you
like,
don't get any of that here because
no,
you only get the three guys. It's
yeah,
it's so like it's hard to understand how important and effective something so minor as his willingness to kill off his no-name crewmates is without
mhm,
seeing it for yourself. It just it's just these things build up into giving you a character who is so much stronger than if you strip a lot of those things away.
right. And again, I guess the writers just felt like, oh, it's unnecessary. Like we can just cut it out to include other things and to include Garp and Kobe and Helma.
Yeah, and this goes back to one of my opinions on the series that is not shared by many people, because a lot of people see it as, okay, One Piece is long, even though it's only adapting the East Blue, it's still a lot of content in the East Blue, and they have to like cut down on it to make it fit in the time span of the 8 episodes that they gave it, yada yada yada. But my counter to that is, I if they really felt like they needed to strip down a lot of the more minorish elements of what happens in the plot in order to uh, get through all of the material and the amount of time they have allotted, then
Mhm.
why did they include so much other extraneous plot elements, such as,
Right.
most namely, the fucking Marines? If you cut them out of the story, the way they are cut, the way they don't exist, or Garp's Marines, I should say, don't exist for the East Blue in the original series, then you have immediately freed up hours of
Literally
time
hours.
that you can dedicate to things that are way more important to making it good. Literally,
Yeah.
at least 2 hours of content is throughout the entire 8 episodes is dedicated to unnecessary marine shit. At least 2
Sorry.
hours.
Sorry, I cannot put this earring on. Okay, got it. Yeah, it's just so unnecessary, and I don't know. Do they like love cops? So they got to put the cops in.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
true. they're whitewashing the ACAB out of the story.
they just love justice, you know.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. They love the Fourth Amendment. They're so respectful of the Fourth Amendment. No
God bless
unreasonable search
them.
and seizure, guys. If you're
God,
a pirate, then arrest on sight. But we're not gonna go into your house, all right?
yeah, we're not gonna question you. Just like we're just gonna get you and like that's
Yeah.
stupid. Yeah. Oh, and
Uh,
then like I think the and I did put I'm kind of going backwards a little bit, well, kind of a whole lot of it. But in the manga, like, Usopp and Luffy kind of hear what's going on. They kind of overhear the plan, like on the beach.
yeah.
And Usopp is like scared. He is like so freaked out, doesn't know what to do. And again, we see these really animated facial expressions that I think could carry over to live action. Like, fine. But like, whatever. I mean, like, I did theater and like,
I
I
mean,
think you
yeah,
could do it fine. But like,
you can definitely do things with your physical body and your face to convey the same emotions that are conveyed in a scene like that without needing to make your mouth like half the size of your head.
yeah. And like, Usopp is sweating. He doesn't know how to confront the issue. And then like, Luffy like just stands up and is like, "Hey, that's not cool. Like, what are you guys doing?" And then he like falls off the cliff, and then he like
Yeah,
passes out.
hypnotized, falling asleep, falls down the cliff.
But like
They think
that is
he's
such a
dead.
funny thing to put in.
It is funny,
But
yeah.
yeah, but then he passes out for like 2 seconds and then wants to meet. So I think I was like, oh, maybe that's why they like have Luffy poison to like still get the kind of passed out aspect. But
No,
again, it's
he
just
was
like
asleep for a lot longer. Yeah, because they
because
made
it
him
felt like
fall
it was
down
just
the.
within a chapter or maybe 2 chapters.
So I mean, it wasn't like a long time
Mhm.
necessarily, but so what happens
I
is
mean, I was just kind of swiping. So.
yeah, Django makes him fall asleep, and then Kuro and
Mhm.
Django think he's dead, but they also see that Usopp overheard it, and then it's at that point in the manga where he's like, nobody will believe Usopp's lies,
Mhm.
and they like fuck off, and I think it's Zoro and Nami, find Luffy sometime later asleep on the beach.
Yeah,
And
that's
they're like,
right.
"Why the fuck are you asleep on the beach?" And they wake him up. Um, through if I'm remembering correctly, Nami smacks him awake like she usually does, and he's like,
Mhm.
"Oh no, the butler's the bad guy. We have to do something about it now." And then like meet with Usopp and stuff ensues from there. Um,
Yeah. So like maybe that's why they wanted to keep in the whole
because
passed out aspect.
Usopp thought he was dead as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. So like, and so they kind of keep Luffy out of the story for a little bit, to kind of let Usopp kind of do his own thing. But like, I don't know, that would have been better. I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know.
there's they
Something along those lines would have been a little
the
better.
way they wrote the series is to have the same like overarching plot beats of
Hmm.
Zoro and Luffy are out of the picture uh for the first chunk of the fight between Usopp, Nami, and the Black Cat pirates. But then and then they come back in later, the two actually strong people, to win the actual fight against the other actually strong people. Um, but the issue with them reflecting those same plot beats here is that they don't really accomplish the same purpose in regards to Usopp and Nami as they do in the original series. It doesn't have the same. They're standing up for themselves, or they're trying to be creative in order to hold off the pirates, um, or any of that jazz before they're bailed out by Luffy and Zoro. In this case,
Yeah.
they're just running away the entire time.
Literally. Or like getting out of a well.
Yeah, while Zolo
But,
is getting out of the well. So
so
also,
whatever.
I feel like I mentioned this last time, but they have the security system that's activated through a mechanical
Yes.
wheel, but it's an electrical system where and they have it so that when you turn the wheel, like it overdraws the power of the mansion, so all of the lights start flickering, and so it's just an extremely poorly designed security system that would not actually be designed in such a way, no matter what
What time period? Yeah.
what time period you're in, where you're activating an electrical system through the mechanical turning of a wheel. Electrical systems are activated through switches, through digital. Digital means zeros and ones, binary means. For the most part, you can do some electromechanical stuff, but not in this case. And you can make it so that the shutters are activated through the turning of a mechanical wheel, but that wouldn't have anything to do with the electrical system. So why would it cause the lights to flicker?
True.
It just doesn't
Because
make
it
sense.
looks scary.
Well, yeah, and I'll mention that in a moment. But the main reason they did it, I feel like, is, or the main reason they did the wheel thing is, I think, the aesthetic of the seafaring nature of One Piece, because they had the wheel shaped like a ship's wheel. So it was like, oh, look, they're turning the ship's wheel to activate the security system. It's aesthetic, and it's like, oh, but it doesn't. That doesn't mean it makes sense.
It has to make sense. It has to look aesthetically pirate-like, and it has to
While
make
still
sense.
making sense.
But I did notice. I remember how I said that I hated everything to do in the mansion. I hated the design. I hated the decor. It was ugly. It was gaudy. Didn't fit One Piece. But I noticed the wallpaper. The wallpaper has shipyard stuff. It has like ships and like them working on the ships and people climbing on the ships. And I thought that was very creative.
This is why I'll never make fun of the set design. Well, except for the lighting in the circus tent.
The lighting's ugly. I hate it.
The lighting and also, I guess, the lighting. Actually, the lighting most of the time is not that great, but the actual design of the set itself is pretty good most of the time.
I hated the decor in it. In the mansion, though, was ugly. But like the wallpaper was sick. I want that wallpaper somewhere. Like I need it.
I will say,
perfect.
this is, I think, more of a personal problem than it is an actual issue, but like the way they present the things happening in the mansion, you would think, or you would hope, that you as the viewer have like a good sense of the layout of the mansion, but you don't actually. You don't really know where
Like how
anything
big is it?
relative to. You don't really know how big it is, but you don't even really know where everything is relative to each other, because every time they show something, they never show people transitioning between different rooms in the mansion or through the hallways. They just show the rooms that they are in.
Where everybody gets lost.
Yeah, so
like
yes.
you don't know.
So
you don't know.
So you see them hanging out in the foyer, but you don't see them transition from the foyer to the dining room. And you see them in the dining room, but you don't see them ever transition between the dining room and the kitchen. You don't ever see where the relationship between the Kaya's bedroom or the massive closet thing, or I think it's the east wing where they end up at the end.
East wing.
You don't see where any of those are in a relationship to the one hallway that they have everybody walk through. And the only thing that you have a good idea of its location is the wine cellar, where it's pretty explicitly shown that there's a stairwell in the kitchen that leads down into the wine cellar.
Yeah. And then there's like a secret passageway or something where like Kuro like sticks his nails into the wall.
There's also a secret passageway, which, I mean, mansions tend to have those.
Escape routes, yeah.
Them using that brings us to another point, which relates to you mentioning the aesthetic of the lights flickering, is they turn the latter 2/3, I guess, of this episode into like a horror movie between Kuro as
Yeah.
the sort of Freddy Krueger character, especially since he's using the
The
fingernails.
evil stepmom that's trying to kill you, that's the
Yeah.
vibe.
And Kaya, Usopp, and Nami as the hapless victims. And I really
Mhm.
do only make that Freddy Krueger comparison because the
The nails.
blade nails, because I've actually never seen Nightmare on Elm Street, so I don't
Seen parts of
know.
it, but like, you know.
I don't know if there's any other parallel between them besides the aesthetic of their weapon.
I say evil stepmom because like in those type of movies, like because he's kind of calling her out, like, oh, you've done nothing in your life and you were a crybaby, and like, oh, daddy, you were daddy's girl, but daddy could never make time for you. It's like, and that's what evil stepmoms do in like movies, or like evil dads that are like trying to kill you, or like evil husbands that are like trying to murder you. So like that's the vibe I'm getting. I'm not getting a One Piece villain, you
Yeah.
know?
Um yeah, it's very bizarre that they made it into a sort of like horror movie type of feel.
Mhm.
And it reminds me, it just now reminded me, there is actually an arc in One Piece that is akin to a horror movie. You haven't seen it yet. It's called Thriller
Mhm.
Bark. Um, and it, it's very different in a lot of ways than what they're showing here. But you could ostensibly call it a horror movie, but it still feels like One Piece. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, this does not feel like One Piece. It's
No.
weird, like offshoot horror movie slapped into the middle of a pirate adventure series. And
Yeah,
I
and then,
don't get
like,
it.
we don't get the relation and then, like, the threats and, like, the insults that Kuro is kind of, telling Kaya. It doesn't really hit the audience because, like, we don't know what the relationship is like that she has with her parents. So
This
it's like, yeah, he's being mean, but, like, how mean is he being, you know?
Yeah, it almost kind of
Not menacing
feels
enough.
like a C movie or a C tier horror grade movie when I'm thinking about it.
Yes.
They
And that's what I'm thinking about, the evil wives and evil husbands. Those are all C movies.
But the reason why is because of the goofy character designs and outfits of the characters. Because
Mhm.
even though they are very professional grade and very well done in the series, because they're modeled after the deliberately goofy One Piece designs, in a sort of shoddily slapdash horror movie that doesn't work as a horror movie and doesn't really work at the dramatic aspect either. It feels like a C movie when you combine that the goofy outfits with the terrible presentation and writing.
Right. Yeah. I think you're completely right. And and also like we see Kaya is like really hurt by this. Um but we don't get to see the deep relationship she has with Kuro, I feel like, in this live action. I
Yeah,
could be wrong, but
yeah,
that's
you
just
don't get much of a sense of it. They do say in like one line at some point, I think that Kuro has been, or Klahadore had been working for her for a while.
I
But
think
you
like
don't.
3 years.
Yeah, it. I don't want to say too strongly, but I do personally think you don't get as strong of a sense that they are very close. You feel like they're a lot closer in the original series than they are in this one, even though
Like with
Klahadore
the
is carrying her.
glasses.
I think the reason is that because even though Klahadore is like basically carrying around her around everywhere, locking her arm with her, it always feels somewhat antagonistic, the dynamic between them. Because Klahadore is always acting so outrageously overbearing and mean towards everybody else. Um, and
An overbearing mother.
yeah, and disregardant of any of uh Kaya's feelings, and also the lack of the whole like glasses thing of giving him a present for his anniversary of working for her that he disregards and breaks.
Yeah.
Um,
And then Kaya, like you can see in the anime, like just how loving she is with him and like how much pride she takes in having him around and like you can really see in the animation how much she loves him and
I think
appreciates
I
him.
think some of that is because they made her so incredibly sickly in this one too, where she's just almost joyless and
Mhm.
devoid of jubilance. Whereas
Mhm.
even though she's sickly from her depression in the original series, she's still like
Right.
expressive and jubilant. Um,
Yeah. She still appreciates life.
yeah.
This girl don't feel like she likes life.
I wonder if it's because she's eating such shitty food all the time. Such gross
Blue
blue
goop.
food.
She's eating American like candy, that's
Yeah,
full of cancerous
it's
stuff.
true. It's like, all of her food looks like fucking like gross candy. It's weird.
It looks like you remember those like a push pop like sour candy
Yeah.
that's like blue raspberry? That's what it looks like. My favorite kind of candy.
It's a miracle they didn't also like dye her lips and tongue blue. That would have made it more believable actually if they made her
Yes,
lips and tongue turn blue every time she ate something or drank something. Be very believable.
true. True.
Be distracting but believable.
Believable,
Um
yes.
uh I
Wild.
yeah. I also might have mentioned this last time, but I also again think that don't think that it's a bad idea to trade out her sickliness from being depression to from being the result of depression to being the result of poison. But the issue is how they changed the writing to sort of like revolve around that fact when it wasn't really that important to what was happening in the
Mhm.
plot to begin with. Like she was sickly, yes, but the specifics of what was like going on in the plot wasn't all that important to her being sickly, whereas they made the poison far more of a central plot element in the live action, because they also used it to get Luffy out of the house from eating it all, um, and
Yeah.
a bunch of other stuff. So I feel like if you just traded traded those things out without changing anything else and just mentioning like, oh, the way that he intended to get rid of her was through poisoning her food over time, um, as opposed to just killing her outright. Or although I guess that does change the whole thing about like inviting the pirates to the island to raid the island and having her die in the pillaging. So
Mhm.
you know what? Maybe this is a stupid point. Maybe I'm stupid.
Now that you're really thinking about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, I get what you mean. Maybe it is.
I feel like it makes sense to make it poison, but I can also see how it would be how it's would be kind of stupid for it to be poison in the original series given Kuro's plan. Um
Mhm.
I, but to that extent, it almost feels like Kaya didn't even really need to be sickly at all, which actually makes me think her being sick from depression might actually even be better than her not being sick or being poisoned, because
Mhm.
it goes it like speaks to her as a person and how much she cared about like her parents and how much their
How much
deaths
it's weighing her
affected her.
down.
Yeah, how much it's weighing her down, um, and why she is the way she is. Fuck it. I just spent I just took the last minute figuring out that Oda is even smarter than I gave him credit for. and
Yeah,
I doubt Oda even did that on purpose.
because I remember we were talking DMs and you're like, "Oh, maybe she could have like what did you say? Like I can't remember what disease you said, and I was like, that disease wouldn't work. Like, come on, I'm a chronic illness expert. Like, come on, like that disease wouldn't work. So maybe like you said, like depression would work in this instance. You know?
I think I just figured out how depression was actually a good plot choice on the part of Oda. Ah,
Yeah. And like she's like she has to let go of that attachment, you know, in order to move on, basically. That kind of worldly attachment.
yeah. Anyways, moving on. Kuro's chasing them and they're in the walls. And I just know he loves just vandalizing the shit out of this house. He's like clawing through the walls and stabbing through them. And once again, if the point is that you're not going to get arrested for murder and you're going to get away with it, why are you leaving behind so much evidence that it was obviously you?
Yeah, and
Who
then like
else would create a set of 5 holes in the shape of like a sort of hand type thing when they go to stab someone through a wall?
oh, and do they even explain how Kuro was killed and how Kuro like escaped from being killed
I'm not
in the
sure
live action?
if they did
I
that.
feel
It
like
was way earlier on, because they introduced the idea of Kuro having been executed by Accent Morgan in the first episode. Um,
mm,
and Helmeppo's like, oh yeah, he died, so there's no fucking way that or my dad executed him, so there's no way he's still fucking alive. I don't know if they described in like what the actual reason was he got away though.
yeah, okay. Well, yeah, and then like he's like again like horror movie, he's like scratching at the glass and like and then once they finally make it to like the east wing in her parents' room where like the wheel is, he's like tearing up the pillows. I'm like, what are you doing, you freak?
Yeah,
Are you just having a fit?
yeah,
Are you having a temper tantrum?
yeah, it indicates the fact that they turned it into a horror movie because they wanted to, without any sort of thought
Direction? Yeah.
into the ramifications of doing some of the things that they were doing in terms of like how it fits into his plan and the plot itself.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and it's not scary, bro. It's
Yeah,
like
it really isn't.
it's especially like maybe for kids, but again, this is for adults. So whatever you do.
Yeah, TVMA, man. TVMA. Even if it was for kids, even if you make something for kids, that doesn't mean it has to be fucking dumb. Kids may not be as intelligent as adults, but they aren't babies. They can actually like watch these things and pick up on them. Kids series should also be smart, because then it also can make the kids smart as they're watching
And be more
it.
introspective and like expect more out of their
Yeah.
media.
And I'm gonna tell you, the adults who like My Little Pony don't like it because they want to feel like kids who are being talked down to. They like it because even though it's very like straightforward and obvious with its themes, it's smartly written and it's
Yeah.
well written. It is a well done show. Kids,
Yeah.
just because it's for kids doesn't mean that it's free from criticism and it is allowed to be dumb.
Yeah, I agree. And again,
One Piece is
like
technically for youth teenagers, the tweens. And it's far from dumb. It's one of the farthest things from dumb.
yeah. And oh, and then like Kaya, Usopp, and Nami are like hiding under the table. And like Kaya gets a knife and she's like, I'm stronger than you think. And then she goes to attack him. I'm like, girl, what are you doing? Like, you sickly and you trying to attack him.
Yeah,
Like
there's
I like
multiple
it's
ways of being strong. You don't have
Yeah.
to be physically strong in the way that Zoro and Luffy are in order to demonstrate
Yeah.
your strength.
But to me, it could have been done with like a speech or like like more dialogue.
Yeah. I mean, Nami is one of the strongest Straw Hats, and that's not because she's anywhere close to being one of the physically strongest, but it's because throughout her life she displayed such courage and perseverance in trying to save her village from Arlong on her own.
Hmm.
That's what makes her strong.
Yeah.
Kaya became strong at the end of the original series, when she was running away from Django, because actually I don't remember enough details to know if I can like describe this
Yeah, she was gonna
adequately,
like
but
sacrifice herself to like save the kids, and
yeah, yes, she's gonna sacrifice herself to save the Usopp pirates.
I love them. I miss them. Instead, we got Helmeppo and the loser Marines.
Yeah.
Makes me so mad.
Um. Well, we get another cut to Zoro's backstory, and the well comparison is still dumb. Um, but one of the things that you're missing is you don't get why Zoro uses three swords. You don't get the same um silly childish uh
Yeah.
starting point, I guess, that carried through into now. Where he shows up to the
52.
dojo using every bamboo sword that they have in the fight until he whittles it down to
To a more
using
manageable level. Yeah.
yeah. You don't get that sense of childishness that led him to using three swords. Instead, he just is using three swords for some reason.
Yeah. And yeah, and that's missing. And like you get to see how they initially came together. And like and I do like that. And again, like Zoro's kid actor has so much spunk, and I love that. Like he's a really good actor. I appreciate him a lot. Like I can't add like I want to follow like what he does. I hope he continues acting. So
Yes.
A+.
So,
What a
so
great munchkin.
um, in relation to the whole like a girl can beat a boy but a woman can't beat a man thing, um it's silly on paper. It's kind of stupid and misogynist point of view to have, even if you're a woman. um but it one of the reasons it works in One Piece is because it doesn't try to justify that in any way. Because as soon as you try to justify it, that's when you realize, oh, this is a really fucking dumb perspective to have. And
Right.
they try to justify it in the live action. They have a line that says something to the effect of, "I'm small and uh, I'm small and fast now. I'm like nimble now, but when
Yeah.
we get older, because I won't develop like as much muscle mass, or
And like you'll be taller, I think.
yeah,
Like
that will become a disadvantage for some reason, even though when you're small and nimble that can still be an advantage. Especially, this isn't a bodybuilding competition, it's sword fighting.
yeah, and like the reason she's able to get one up on him is because he keeps dropping his elbow. Like he doesn't have very good form.
Yeah, and it may be more difficult to like parry or deflect a slash from somebody who has a lot more mass and force behind it. But that's not to say that you can't do that, and it's not to say you can't dodge, and it's not to say that you can't. It's a sword. Like, you can cut through somebody. If you can cut them, then it doesn't necessarily matter with how much force you're cutting them, because that's like a
Yeah.
grievous wound. And Mihawk beats Zoro not through force, but through technique. Like, I just, oh, it's so dumb. It's such a dumb fucking thing to say. It's like I said, as soon as you try to justify why men are like better than women in physical activities through whatever justification you have, it starts to come across as silly, for a variety of reasons. Um
Right, right. Yeah, it does, and it does like and immediately like Zoro, he does say like, well, that doesn't matter. Like let's make a promise. Like it does try to cover it up a bit, but I don't think it does it well. You know. And then she dies by falling down the stairs. So like,
Yes. I don't think this. I don't think they said it was from the
oh
stairs in
no,
this one, though. They
yeah, they
don't.
say there's been a terrible accident, is what they say.
Yeah. So I don't want to say or think about like how good of a reason it is that they elaborate on this whole like she's it just goes to show like how fragile and frail life is, and also to some extent how women is, that she can die from falling down the stairs.
Right.
But the live action seems to have decided for everybody that it was bad to have her die from falling down the stairs. So and to have that whole thing about life being fragile, they decided it was better to get rid of it.
Yeah, and I do okay, and I did say the soundtrack was bad, right?
Really
But
there was a good song at this point.
I did like the funeral, the song during the funeral.
I
I did like the strings and the drums. Like it was good. Good.
I did not notice it, and that's probably a good thing, because the only song I did notice was Arlong's theme, and it was really fucking stupid.
It was trap, the fire trap. But no, this one, and then like the scene. Oh my, this was the one point where the scenery in this whole scene, in this whole flashback, the scenery is gorgeous and the lighting is good. Like you see the forest and you get great angles of what's going on, and like you get like the sunset and like the lake. I mean, it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I'm like, why couldn't we have done this the whole time? I'm just confused. Why is it so good at this one point and then it's just trash the rest of the time? There's so much greenery and life, and then we just get sandy yellow.
Everything in present time has to have a sickly yellow filter, sepia filter, whereas everything in the past can be supernatural, super space natural, and nice looking.
It's trash. I hate it. I mean, I love flashback. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm like, did somebody ever like? It was just beautiful. And then when he says like, "Oh, I want to take up the sword," and he's like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because we made a promise." And he's like, "Okay." Like, okay, like, what? There's so many other kids there. Like, why are you so special? Like,
it actually makes me wonder. I forgot whether or not it was Zoro who asked for the sword, or whether the master gave him the sword in the original series.
I can't remember, but like the way it's kind of depicted in live action is just like trash. That's the way it comes. Like I laughed out loud when I was watching it this morning, like with my morning coffee, when he's like, "Why should I give it to you? Because we made a promise." Okay. I was like, I'm joking. Well, then that's the story of how he got the sword.
I actually did write that down. The dialogue for receiving the sword and just in general is so clunky.
Okay, then we were thinking the same thing. Okay, I wasn't the only one.
And I didn't write down any particular lines, but apparently it was pretty bad.
But yeah, and then we get back to like.
Well, actually, before the part where he receives the sword, because again, they cut between the Zoro's backstory and everything else happening super frequently, is the stuff where they're taking Luffy away from the mansion. And I wrote down vomit with no other details, because he vomits on Helmeppo from
first Luffy's like meat. And Helmeppo was like, "Oh, you got something to say, Straw Hat?" And then he just immediately like throws up on him.
Yeah, I didn't
projectile vomit.
Your camera froze again. I don't have anything else to say about it though besides vomit. My notes just say vomit. It was probably just to remind me that the scene happened in the first place. And we
Okay.
also had a cut back to the running in the mansion, where at this point I think they're in the East Wing where they kept all of Kaya's family's mementos. And they use the world's weirdest light switch, a lever. Why is the white light switch a lever? Again, like just the
It's a fun house.
yeah, they designed it for aesthetic first as opposed to function. It just doesn't make sense. They ever since lights have been used in ever since electrical lights have been used in houses, they've used pretty simple means to turn those lights on and off, which is to say a light switch, because it's not complicated. The way it works is simply connecting or disconnecting a circuit. You just have to attach or unattach a piece of metal to get it to conduct. And you don't need a whole ass fucking lever to do it. You just need the switch. It's it's like
it's so easy. Wow. Wow, who would have thunk it?
Fucking Dojin Ronin just
What do you say?
Just coming in with the funny reminder. You won't hear this because I'm not showing. Actually, I'll see if I can show it to you.
I mean, at least you tried.
I fucking tried. Pull the lever, Kronk. Pull the lever.
Pull the lever, Kronk. Wrong lever. Why do we even have that lever?
Why do we have that lever? That movie is so funny. It's so much better than live action One Piece because it's actually funny.
Kronk,
the jokes actually land.
Yeah, like when I was little, I watched that movie so much that I used to be able to recite it word for word. So yeah, I'm sorry, Mom and Dad.
Yeah. All right. Well, back to the scene with the lever where they're in the wing of the mansion. And it looks bad. So the camera, at one point, does something to the effect of like panning to show skulls on a desk or something, and it's like, oh, skulls are scary. Oh, the skulls mean they're gonna die. Woo! Scary skulls.
Symbolize death and the fragility of life, and like,
yeah, whoa, wow, the girl's gonna kill them because there's skulls in the room.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of like The Last Unicorn. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but like they use skulls in that movie so much better than they do here. It's just kind of like placed there just for whatever. But in The Last Unicorn, it is to show like mortality and the fragility of life and how we should let go of like the worldly attachment. Like, anyways,
there's two things that live action One Piece does not have.
Yes, it's intentional. And The Last Unicorn is a children's movie from the 90s. Do better, bros. And it was made from an anime studio. So yeah. Fun. Anyways.
So this is now we're back at the particular scene in which they show him receiving the sword, where they're still cutting between the well and his backstory. And I wrote down, so he was dumped in the well while he was unconscious, suffered no injury. But one of the times when he slipped and fell back down to the bottom of the well, he was like staggered from it. He like felt the impact. It's like, so if you received no injury from falling down the well where he probably again landed on his head,
right?
Why would he be staggered from falling the second time when he can fall naturally? God, so fucking stupid.
Yeah, honestly. And then like he just walks out like nothing happened, you know?
Yeah. So again, there were no stairs, no Kuina falling down the stairs. It was just an accident. God, I hate the well. The dialogue with the sword is bad. And now we get back to Luffy with the Marines. And he's recovering from his sickness, and they're like talking about what's going on. And I have to question this. Because they've shown everything that everybody else is going through at the mansion, they expect the audience to forget that Luffy doesn't know what's going on. He has not been told that Kuro is the bad guy. He has not been told that he was poisoned from the contents of the bowl. He was taken away from the mansion while he was unconscious. Why does he know what's going on? Why is he able to tell the Marines that Kuro is bad and trying to murder people?
I didn't even realize that. I didn't even pick that up.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah, but he's like, I have to stop him, and then they're like, no, we have to arrest you, and he's like, do not try and stop me, you know, and then they're like, okay, bye.
Well, I mean, they couldn't stop him. To be fair, they were fucking weak.
Yeah, yeah, and
then that
they'll...
feels like a pretty Luffy thing to do, actually, to be like, I'm going to beat this guy up, and there's nothing you can do to stop me.
Yeah, but again, like, this
once.
Luffy is much more serious.
Oh, excuse me.
Which, again, I'm fine with this Luffy being a different person, but, like, this Luffy is a lot more serious than, like, the Luffy that's, like,
I don't know,
you know, in the anime and manga.
It worked in this scene.
Maybe I just don't like his acting.
Him understanding what was going on to the extent that he did and being able to articulate it is not Luffy, but the way he acted in response, being like, I want to beat this guy up, don't stop me, and being all super serious about it, is akin to what the actual Luffy would do. But it just kind of falls flat because it's different Luffy in all the other scenes. It doesn't really work here, and yeah, it's not acted in a good enough way, I guess. I don't know. It's weird.
I think I just don't like the tone of Luffy where he's kind of like, I'm going to do this and you cannot do anything about it. It kind of reminds me of the way I scolded children at daycare. Like,
I think a lot of it is the writing and the phrasing, again, because the way that actual Luffy would phrase it would be like, I'm gonna beat that guy up, pretty much verbatim. Whereas in this one there's more words, and it's not, and the meaning behind those words is far less simple.
Yeah, and maybe they just wanted to make this Luffy more interesting, so they're like, let's give him more dialogue, because maybe this Luffy would be more boring.
Giving him more lines and more dialogue doesn't make him so interesting. It doesn't make him more interesting. It makes him less interesting. One of the reasons why Luffy in the actual series is so interesting is because he's not because his words are not complicated, but his actions and his morality is. He's an interesting person to try and understand and articulate and explain. And there's a lot of, like, evolution that he also undergoes over the course of the series in better understanding how he should perform as captain as well. But in this case, it's like, he's just too verbose. It's just not as interesting. God freaking damn it.
I set him off. I triggered him. I'm sorry.
You set me off because you said they tried to make him more interesting by giving him more things to say. But that's not.
I said maybe.
Interesting.
Don't come for me. I said maybe.
I know. I'm saying it's just, if that's what they were thinking, it's just so stupid.
They're like, people who are simple-minded aren't interesting. And, like, I think Luffy might be a little autistic, and they're like, autistic people aren't interesting actors, so, like, we just gotta not make him autistic. Sorry, guys.
Oh my god.
You know, they don't understand neurodivergency, and it's sad to see.
Yeah. So
yeah. Where are we? Where do we leave off?
Zolo also, he got out of the well and went to go back to the mansion, and he stumbled across the Marines and Luffy. And the reason he did is because he was going the wrong direction, because he got lost. But once again, it's not funny in the live action the way it is in the actual series, because they don't play it for laughs. They just offhandedly, casually mention that he gets lost easily, instead of making a joke out of it. It's just not funny. I complained.
Did you come to save me? And he's like, no, I just
I
got
went the wrong
lost.
way. No,
I just got lost.
I thought this was the way to the mansion.
Like, again, they're not a team. They're not a crew. Sorry, Luffy, but that's not your bro.
Yeah, Luffy is. Dojo Ronan says Luffy is definitely an autismo, which isn't bad, by the way. He's right; it's not bad.
Mhm.
Zolo literally gets stuck in a well, as I've complained about endlessly.
Yeah.
And I don't know if what you mean by missed opportunity is him getting stuck in a well, because I don't think that. I think the missed opportunity is putting him in the well because it was a bad idea.
Such a bad idea.
Like anything
Right.
else would have been better.
You know what? I fell asleep whenever he first, whenever, halfway when he was in the well, honestly.
It's just the well is so stupid.
I was so sad when I had to, rewind and, I was like, back to the well.
A Lassie reference. What is that Lassie? Little Timmy got stuck in a... I don't understand that.
I didn't see Lassie.
I just don't know. I everybody's heard the phrase "little Timmy got stuck in the well," but I just maybe I'm stupid. Don't understand what you mean by that. I have already complained endlessly in again my initial review of the series. Why do they quietly enter the house? Why do they quietly enter the house? Neither of them as characters behave in that way. They're fucking arrogant.
Quiet?
Why would they quietly enter the house? They would beat down the door. They would just punch it open, cut it open, doesn't matter. They would announce their presence and be like, "Fuck you, get over here and fight me." As opposed to being like, oh, we gotta open the shutter quietly. We gotta prop it open, and then we gotta quietly close the door behind us. We can't let the villains that we're gonna fight know that we're here.
Yeah, that's not who are these men? I don't know them. Sorry.
Yeah. Who are they? I just wish there was a better term for. I wish there was also a mistranslation for Luffy that we could use for him, like we use for Zolo.
I know.
I
you know what? I misspelled his name to Luff. Just Luff.
Luff. Yeah, we could call him Luff from now on.
I forgot the Y at the end. I don't know what I was doing. I was tired last night.
So there's the confrontation with Kuro and the trio of scrublets, and he finds them hiding, or one of them comes out and tries to get him or whatever, and he captures two of them. He captures Kaya and Nami in his arms, and he's holding his blades at their throats, and for some reason he twirls them out from his arms and goes from holding the blades at their throats to holding them at the end of the blade, and I'm like, that gives you so much less leverage over them and their actions.
That's what I was thinking.
And it's so much less dangerous of a circumstance for them to be in, because now they could just lean away from you, and you have to reach for them, as opposed to you just being able to move your arm and or them move their bodies really, and their throat gets sliced open. It's just so stupid. It's just so stupid.
And I was wondering, why didn't they move out the way or lean a different way? What is happening? That could have been the perfect opportunity. Just be skedaddle away a little bit, or get some distance. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just too optimistic. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, I remembered some people say Luffy, and some of them say Luffy.
Luffy.
Yeah, some people do say Luffy. It's like a translation thing. Somebody, it's some people just get it wrong, I suppose. But that's not a misspelling, and I don't know. I would feel. I mean, maybe I can use that from now on. I'll think about it. To
be decided.
Yeah. So also when he's fighting, so Kuro is so dominant over the trio of them in this confrontation for obvious reasons. And at any point in time, he could kill all three of them. And reasonably, he should kill all three of them, like, immediately. He has no intention of hiding his killing of Kaya. He even said he was very intentioned to killing her as soon as the clock struck midnight. They were, like, all putting their gear on to murder her, and they have no intention to hide it.
He killed Mary and, like, left Mary in the cellar for how long?
While watching the dead body for some reason.
He's a weirdo, bro.
Yeah. And at one point in time, instead of stabbing Usopp, he, like, pushes him away. And it's just, you know, I guess it goes back to what I said in the last episode, where he just likes playing with his victims for some reason, where he's just, like, dancing around them instead of actually killing any of them. And it's like, dude, if you want to accomplish your plan, maybe you should kill these people. But no, he's Kuro of the 1,000 shitty plans. And I put that in quotes because he does directly say, I'm Kuro of the 1,000 plans. And I just wrote shitty in the middle because his plans are shitty. They're so bad. So many plot holes.
They're and he's just not very menacing, you know? And like, I did like that Nami stepped in and, like, you know, came to Kai. I wanted to say Kara came to Kaya's side to try and, like, help and, like, you know, back her up a little bit. You know, I did like that because it shows that, like, she's a good person at heart and, like, women helping women, you know, but, like,
women be shopping. I don't know. I don't know why I said that.
Okay, I guess.
I don't. It just goes to show I'm losing my mind. So they did actually mention that Kuro killed his crewmates, his former crewmates, but it's still way worse than the original series because it's tell rather than show. And the live action adaptation is so persistent in telling you rather than showing you everything. Just show me it's these things to make me feel and understand them. Stop trying to tell me them in order to understand them. It just doesn't work. Fuck.
Yeah. And because that's when that's when it shows just how, like, menacing and, like, again, how evil he is. And I did like in the anime how he's like, oh, you know, how he does pretend to be, like, somebody else in order to get away. And like, he was going to do whatever it took to get his way, basically. Like, he was done with the pirate life and he was, like, going to peace out. And we don't get that.
Yeah.
Like, we don't get what his real intentions are, you know, or, like, how desperate he is.
Again, it feels very petty. It feels like petty revenge in the live action as opposed to a well-intentioned plan with a given purpose.
Yeah. And because it does show, again, like, how exhausting the pirate life can be for some people, you know.
Also, shut up, Dojin Ronin. I get that this is before Nami's double cross, but it doesn't give her more heart and makes her more empathetic. You know why? Because she acts in this manner in the actual series too, but in, like, a better way. She stands up against the Black Cat crew against in that as well. In order to protect people, and it works so much better there than it does here. You feel like she's more kind in that circumstance than in this one. Like, people are so charitable towards this live action adaptation, where they're taking what they've already known to be the case of the characters from the original series and applying it to the live action as though the live action does these things that you already understand because you already know them to be the case, and so you're searching for them in the live action. When it's like, no, the live action doesn't do these things, and if it does do them, it does them worse.
Lemon is stinky pewy.
I'm not going to be charitable to something that is just bad and just does things worse, whose only saving grace is that it's adapted from a material that's brilliant. If your only positive, if the only things that are good about you are the things that you directly lifted atrociously from the source material, then you're not good.
Bro, he going off. Go off, sis.
God.
Speak your truth.
Okay. Also, I just took a shower, so I hope I'm not stinky.
You are stinky, Pewee.
Pew, pew, pew. That's why I'm wearing my shower robe. Just took a shower. And because I've been doing this thing where I'm not wearing undershirts and showing my bare chest like Luffy does for all of the live action episodes.
It's very manly. It's very handsome, you know?
I'm a man's man.
A man's man.
Man's
you
man.
know? Real men don't wear shirts.
we real men have all this chest hair.
Stop. Oh
Real men rub
Ew, I can't.
their
I can't. It's too much testosterone in the house.
Yeah, this is why I'm losing all my hair.
Hey,
All my head hair,
when you
at
get older, you start growing hair in other places. So, you know.
I already grow hair everywhere, so that's...
So just saying.
So, now at this point in time, Kuro and Zoro, or Luffy and
Real
Zoro...
men have super hard nips. True.
I mean, I don't know if you would be able to tell, man, but without wearing an undershirt with the current temperature of the house, you know, they might be.
Gross. Stop crying.
So
Stop crying.
Luffy and Zoro are having their fights, and for some reason, all of Kuro's cuts with his swords are like super shallow. And I guess this was also the case in the original series as well. The cuts were kind of pretty shallow, all things considered. But I think because of the more realistic makeup that they're trying to use, it it looks even more shallow than it did in the anime. Luffy's just like... Actually, I think I know what it is. It's because the wounds are like really small. It's not so much how deep they are as part of the reason they don't look deep is because they're like super small. They look like scrapes, as opposed to actual cuts, and they don't like bleed out of the wound either. So
yeah, I think Luffy's like covered in them because like he's trying to protect his, he's trying to protect Kuro's allies, you know.
Yeah, in the original series, he's covered in, not necessarily because he's protecting his crew members, but he does get covered in cuts from Kuro. Whereas in this one, he sustains like one wound that's like a trio of scratches on his face. It looks like an actual cat scratched him, as opposed to somebody who's using cat claw swords.
Yeah, honestly.
So
me and you were gonna fight.
I also wrote down that Zoro is being like super slow motion and cool with his swords, probably when he's like taking them out. I thought
the fight was cool.
The choreography of the fights is generally pretty good. But I decided to make fun of him, like, I think, like, taking out his swords and posing with them in a super, like, intentioned and slow motion fashion. So he's like, I'm a Chad.
He's Chad. And to be fair, the Zoro in the anime acts like a Chad. Like, sometimes it's a little suffocating how much he acts like a Chad, you know?
Yeah, but there's a reason that people are really attached to the original series Chad Zoro as opposed to this Chad Zoro, because this is try hard Chad Zoro as opposed to
and like McKenyu, he's
automatically cool Zoro.
And McKenyu, he's so hot. I want to see him pose more. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Also, Dojin Ronin is right. It's not a Kuro of the 1,000 plans. It's Kuro of the I need to cut you 1,000 times before you can die. Before you will die from me wounding you.
True.
Cat playing. Yeah, I mean, I guess a cat playing with their food. But the thing is with Kuro in the live action versus the original series is that he's supposed to be, he may be modeled after a cat, but he's supposed to be intelligent and making plans and try and smart about what he's doing. He kind of has, you could say, playfulness with his food because he gives people 5 minutes to finish their task before he kills them, and he uses his like indiscriminate attacking thing. But like it's not the same Kuro. Whereas in this one, they scrap the intelligence part of it with his plans, and his menacingness for him just actually being no more menacing than a cat. He like, instead of him being modeled after a cat, he has become a cat in both how dangerous he is and in how smart he is. Because cats may be among the more intelligent species of animals, but you know, they're not humans. they're not that smart.
Yeah. But I mean, hey, like some cats will like full on like what do cats do that like sometimes when they scratch you like don't they like give you sepsis or something? So like
They can give you
maybe
cat
Kuro's
scratch
scary
fever.
like that. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Kuro can do that.
Yeah, maybe he's coated his blades in some poison. That would make him smarter than he is in this.
They should have done that. Dang, I'm so smart. They should have done that instead.
Yeah. So Luffy also doesn't end up breaking one set of his claws, which is done in the original series to sort of like heighten the tension and danger of the scene, because that's what causes Kuro to like be sufficiently upset to use his stronger indiscriminate attack. It like sort of ups the stakes and shows the position that the two of them are in relative to each other strength wise. And you just don't get that here, so you just get a normal punch.
Yeah,
which is just unfortunate.
Yeah, and then you kind of get the dialogue where, remember this was in the manga or anime, I didn't check, but like where Kuro is like, "Oh, Luffy, do you really want a target on your back the rest of your life?" Like, was that adapted? I can't remember.
I don't remember. I if I ever don't remember if something that was good was adapted into the live action at this point in time, my default is to say that it wasn't, because it has given me no reason to believe that they've done anything smart.
Yeah. I mean, because like, I'm like, yeah. Because like, we have I'm sorry if you can hear my dog, he's very grumpy because like I'm not petting him. Okay. But we have like, like I said before, we have Kuro who's like, I want an easy life and me. And we have Luffy who tells him like, you need to suck it up, bro. Like, these are the choices that you made and this is the life you chose, And we don't get that in this scene. And so whenever Kuro kind of tells Luffy like, it's okay, it's Captain Kuro.
I've brought for everybody Kuro of the 1,000 Plans in real life to comment on the actual on his performance in the live action adaptation. I don't know if he
did a
has
stellar
anything
job
to say, but here he is. It's Kuro. Say hi, Kuro.
Hi, Kuro. He's so cute. He's chunky.
Saying hi.
Oh my god, I started talking. Now my dog thinks I'm talking to him. Great.
I don't sleep in that bed behind me. By the way, that I just revealed behind the curtain. I don't sleep in there. Kuro does.
Oh,
his name is not Kuro.
That's Kuro's
he is
bed.
Kuro now.
My dog has his own bed too, so But Yeah, and so then when Kuro in the live action is like, the pirate life isn't easy. Like, do you always want a target on your back? And Luffy's like, the pirate life isn't about raiding villages. It's about adventure. And like, my crew was always here for each other. And I'm like, girl, you ain't got a crew. Your crew don't. You and your crew
Yeah,
haven't made that pact.
He doesn't.
What do you
He doesn't
mean?
even have a crew at this point.
What you talking
Zoro
about?
has not sworn allegiance to Luffy. Nami is there out of mutual benefit. Those are the only two people. I guess maybe he intends on recruiting Usopp at this point, but as I'll mention shortly, Usopp has done nothing to earn being on their
Right.
crew. There's like he has not developed a relationship with any of them to any significant extent.
Right. And so like it's just so weird. This dialogue is so weird, and to me it just means nothing without Kuro's backstory and without Luffy being like, bro, that's the life he
Yeah.
chose. Like you made your bed, lie in it. Suck it up, bro.
Even
And like we don't get Luffy's sassiness as much, I feel like. And like again, like Luffy seems kind of like neurodivergent, and I feel like kind of like with neurodivergent people and kind of like with me, like we just kind of like blurt out the things we are feeling and saying. And so we're just kind of like, bro, we don't care about your problems. Like, suck it up. Like, you suck. We hate you. And like Luffy doesn't do that.
yeah,
So
it's
like,
just even when they lift specific like ideas or lines of dialogue straight from the original series, they do it without any sort of um care about the other changes that they made that completely alter the meaning of those lines or ideas,
right.
or more often than not make them come across as extremely shallow in comparison
Yeah.
or nonsensical.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I don't know, do some other dialogue or make it better. Make it better.
It's just
I don't know.
make it better.
Or just do something different entirely and just, I don't know. It was just bad.
Yeah. So they win the fight and now they're gonna like strike out on their own. Kai gives them ship or whatever. And Usopp's going to join them, but they there's they've like talked to each other and Usopp introduced them to Kaya, but Usopp hasn't really done anything that Luffy has like seen to.
Luffy's like, you're a good sharpshooter. Oh yeah. Oh no, because like Usopp, he kind of like does the slingshot, and Kuro kind of catches it in between his like fingers.
Yeah.
So he sees that, but he's like,
Well,
that makes you a great sharpshooter.
No, he sees him shooting the pellets in the kitchen.
Oh,
At
so
the
he
one
doesn't
point.
even see that part.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the part with Kuro wouldn't necessarily make him out to be that good of a sharpshooter. But there's a lot of the reason why Luffy has specific people join him is because A, they have grand dreams, but B, they perform some amount of actions that makes Luffy latch on to them, so to speak. Like Zoro, he stands up for the people in Shell's town and takes the fall to protect them.
Right.
Usopp,
Nami, because she's the navigator, and like she doesn't.
he needed a navigator at the time, but he also Nami in Orange Town again stands up for Luffy and prevents him from being buggy balled. She actively tries not to kill him, and other circumstances in the town as well. Of them like working together for similar moralistic reasons. In Orange Village or Orange
Syrup Village.
Syrup Village. Sorry, thank you. In Syrup Village, Usopp stands up or does the whole thing where he tries to make it as though the pirate attack never happened by being the wall in between Kuro's village and Syrup Village and protect Kaya, regardless of what people think of him. Sanji
it's very
feeds
selfless.
somebody without any despite the fact that it's like a bad idea. He feeds anybody who's hungry. And
And he
Chopper,
doesn't care about the consequences that are going to come to him, you know?
yeah, Chopper be doctoring. Uh,
And Chopper has such a big heart, you know?
yeah,
Like, Chopper's a good boy. I love Chopper.
yeah, and other. To be fair, well, no, even Nico Robin, when she initially joins them, like, the way it comes across to an audience member is like she just kind of forces herself upon them. But they do show that she does a few things in that final section of
Mhm.
Alabasta that shows that she's
Are
like kind for
commendable.
people and looking out for them. Like she
Yeah.
gives the antidote, I
Carries
think, to
Luffy and
Luffy. Yeah, she carries them outside of the collapsing tomb, her and Cobra, Luffy and Cobra. um and also more than anything else, she does the funny bits with her hands popping out of people's heads.
yeah,
That's one way to
loves
get to
that, you know?
Luffy's heart.
Yeah, by doing funny stuff, you know?
Yeah. um
And,
but
yeah.
you don't get that, you don't get that same sense here, is all I'm trying to say with
Yeah,
Usopp.
yeah, you don't. It's just like
Or
everybody is
Zoro.
there because the plot wants it to be,
Yeah,
you know?
everybody's there because it's convenient and necessary as opposed to natural. um
Yeah.
Furthermore, to even more strongly demonstrate this, Usopp doesn't at first attempt to strike out on his own, uh, because that was like that's meant to be a sort of like turning point for his characters prior to being formally invited onto Luffy's ship.
Mhm.
He is like, I have decided for myself that this is the time for me to be a pirate. I'm going to do it now.
Yeah.
And then he's invited on the ship, like the point of that is to show his growth as a character. And
Yeah, and then he kinda, like, disbands his little pirate crew and,
yes,
tells them to follow their own dreams and kinda set off on doing their own thing, and you
but
don't get that.
but instead it's just like, well, now they're all together and now they're on the ship again.
Oh, and then him and Kai are, like, in love, and which I think is fine, but, like, we can
Yeah,
have boys and girls can be friends without there being, like, a romantic element to it, so, you know.
yeah. I mean, there's you could make the argument that there was some level of romantic undertones in the original series as well, but it's like I mentioned before when we talked about how there was like this talk about whether or not they were boyfriend girlfriend between Nami and Kaya.
Mhm.
I was like, it's kind of like the point and intentional that even if um, perhaps Usopp likes Kaya in that way, it's intentional to avoid having them be uh, explicitly romantic to that extent, because
Yeah,
the point is that all the Straw Hats are asexual. They're they get aroused by adventure rather than
right.
physical, the act of sex. Um,
Yeah. And like they're fine with companionship. They don't need a romantic,
yeah,
relationship.
and so it's just kind of negligent or renege of the themes of the
It's
original
not
series to have
seeing
them kiss like that.
y- yeah, it's not seeing what Oda was trying to convey, you know?
Yeah. Um, Also, again, why is Luffy good at naming things? Because in this case, he's the one who names the Going Merry, as opposed to it already having the name the Going Merry before they go on it.
Yeah,
There,
and then like because Mary like is actually dies in the live
yeah,
action.
because Merry actually dies in this one too.
I'm like, poor Mary, they killed him off, bro. That's
They
so
fucking
sad.
killed him. Um,
Hey dog.
I don't remember the particular reasons why I wrote this down. I think it was just like a lack of explanatory dialogue in the live action, where Kaya, she doesn't decide on becoming a doctor for the sake of helping people. She just like decides to become a doctor. Whereas in the original series, like she just it's just like a simple extra like 6 to 8 words or whatever, and is like, oh, because I want to help people. That's why I want to be a doctor now.
Yeah, I think she says like maybe when Usopp was like, don't you need help with the shipyard? And she's like, maybe the shipyard was my parents. Like maybe I want to do something different. Maybe I want to be a doctor. And it's like, okay, and then like I guess they killed Mary off because they're like, Kaya needs to be your own woman and be independent. I'm like, yeah, but like you can be independent and like still have like friends around you and like somebody to help you out, because Mary is there to like help out with like finances and give her some guidance, because like this is the first time she's been on her own. Like she doesn't know everything.
Yeah, and when you're a business owner, you can't just like do everything in the business on your own.
Yeah, you gotta have like
I'm all about having
accountants.
democratically organized business ownership, as opposed to authoritarian ones like Kaya would be in. But you still need like a delegation of people who are good at different things and delegated different responsibilities. You can't do everything yourself. So like you kind of need a Mary to be helping you if you own a shipyard.
Yes, and she doesn't know anything about owning a shipyard. She's been like as Clawhador, as Kuro said, like she couldn't do anything for herself.
Yeah.
So it's just weird. Again,
Yeah.
it's just weird. Like poor Mary. Rest in peace, Mary. You will live in our hearts and minds, and I'm glad you're not actually dead in the anime, because you didn't deserve that, bro.
Yeah.
Just saying.
After they set sail and they're on the ship, there's some sort of dialogue scene or whatever. Don't remember the details. But in it, Usopp tosses a piece of popcorn up into the air and into his mouth, and I wonder how many takes it took for them to do that.
Oh yeah, I know.
Because it was one like, there was a little bit of dialogue after he did it too, in which they like continued speaking during the scene, as opposed to him doing that and then cutting to somebody else. So I just wonder how many times they had to run that scene for him to be able to do that.
Yeah, same. Yeah, and I did like seeing the Going Merry and everybody on it, and like Zoro kind of like sitting in the hammock, kind of chilling, and like them talking and having a little laugh, and them being silly. I kind of like
but the
that,
music sucked. So this is the first time I believe they play the orchestral remix of "We Are" that they made for this Netflix adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of sucks compared to the original theme. It's just,
and it was terrible.
Bad.
Yeah.
It's just worse.
Yeah.
I couldn't give any particular details as to why. It just doesn't hit as good.
It doesn't hit the same. I have to listen to it again, maybe, but like I don't remember it. But like again, I was like doing my hair while I was watching this last little bit, so like I was focused on different things.
Yeah, and in regards to like that casual scene where it's nice to see them all hanging out and whatever, yeah, it's cool to see that until it's explained that that's what's going on. Because they sit there and they do their like bits of like talking with each other and like playing off each other, showing their personalities and making fun of each other, and they do the flag thing where Luffy's like, here's this flag that I made that's really shitty, and Usopp's like, here's this flag that I made that's really good, but it's of my symbol instead of yours. And then after they run the gamut of them like talking, doing all this conversational stuff, they interrupt it for Luffy to be like, and that's what it's about, guys. Just chilling out with my crew and hanging out and being friends. And it's like, dude, really?
What?
That's so cringe.
It is cringe.
It's so cringe.
I totally forgot about that part. Man, I was gonna let that slip by too.
It's so cringe.
Man, they almost had me.
Yeah. And this is also the point in time in which they reveal that Garp is Luffy's grandpa, which comes way too early in the story.
Like, grandpa? Because, like, we're on Skypea, and, like, I didn't even know that, and you had to tell me that, because you're like, okay, we're watching live action, guess what?
Yeah, I was like, it's the it's the end of the arc after Skypiea in which they reveal that. And that's just a ways away from where we are. And it's like, I kind of felt like doing the live action, and you agreed to it. And it was like, okay. I mean, it's a spoiler, yes. Is it like that big of a spoiler? I guess not necessarily. Because it doesn't reveal anything about any like later plot points in which such family dynamics come into play.
Yeah, which
but
like
regardless, it still comes way too early in the story.
yeah, and he's like grandpa, and everybody's like grandpa, and then it just ends, you know. And it kind of
Yeah,
gets. I'm like,
that's where the 4th episode ends.
yeah, and then you're like, get it because the last names are the same. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Monkey D. Garp, Monkey D. Luffy.
Never noticed. I'm just dumb, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I'm not sure they ever said that his name is Monkey D. I think they did say it.
Yeah,
in the anime, they did say his name was Monkey D. Garp.
Yeah, they did.
The hero of the Marines, Vice Admiral Garp. Regardless, that's where it's done. We did it. We're halfway through. Woo! And we'll never. And unfortunately, we're liable to never stop doing 1 episode per episode. Very sad.
We have so much to say. We're just gabbing over here, you know, just chit-chatting away.
It's too much to complain about. It's so...
Who would have think it?
So... like, okay, so it reminds me. There's... Yeah, if you ever heard of Your Movie Sucks, he did part 1.
Yeah. He has like that weird kind of profile picture with like the mean face.
Yeah, it's like a it's a cutout of his head that's in like a shitty position.
Okay, yeah. I know.
He did a episode of his YouTube series, a video essay or whatever you would call it, on the 2019, I think, live action photo reel Lion King remake. And it's only part 1, and it's like 2.5 hours long or some shit like that. And it's basically what we're doing here, but in like a far more like scripted and edited format, where he's just meticulously going through every single dumbass thing about that movie, how it's dumb even within that movie, and also how it's dumb as an adaptation of the original Lion King, although he is also relating it to a lot of the like post-movie interview and supplemental material type stuff as well. And then furthermore, on top of that, he had to make an entire separate dedicated episode on Kimba the White Lion, because originally he was going to put that in the Lion King episode, but as he researched it more, and it was like way too long and independent of its own like topic to talk about, how people say that Lion King is like ripoff of Kimba, even though it really isn't. So he ended up making that its own like 2-hour long thing.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's why.
Anyways, all that's to say is that there's a comment on that video that says something to the effect of like, that video on the Lion King remake, or actually I think it was on Kimba, needs to be immortalized on the internet as just like a quintessentially how like media analysis like works, so to speak, and how to like break down these sorts of like ideas and how filmmaking works, and something to that effect. I would have to look up the precise comment. And I feel like this is very similar, because the reception to that live action remake, it's not live action, fuck, Lion King. The reception of that Lion King remake, while it has not stayed very long in the minds of people, I would guess similar to live action One Piece, except when they come out with new seasons. While it's like long-term opinion has been kind of lukewarm, it wasn't terribly received when it first came out. People are generally middling to good on it. And that's how people similarly see, even though it's like really atrociously bad. That's similarly how people see live action One Piece. as, if anything, better than that. Good, at least good. And I feel like what we're doing here is very similar to that, in that we're breaking down how just people should have better understanding of media. Better media literacy, and they should have eyes. Really, most importantly, because we mentioned the camera work thing, just like have eyes. Like, I feel like you
Well,
just need to
and
have
you're
eyes in order to understand that this is bad.
yeah, and I think sometimes you just need a different perspective too, because I think sometimes we're just fed awful media and we're just like, okay, that's fine. And
Yeah,
then
people have
yeah.
gotten very complacent with how good
Mhm.
the media that they consume is. And even though I pretty much, in regards to television and movies, I pretty much only watch anime. I mean, I feel that way about myself too, because genuinely, when you look at most anime, even though I generally like come off a lot of them feeling positively, it's not as though I could reasonably look at them and be like, this is actually like a phenomenal piece of art that like stands with other phenomenal pieces of art for most of the shit that I
It
watch.
stands with One Piece.
Yeah. Well, even that, I mean, I wouldn't even regard the anime adaptation of One Piece that way, just because it has so
Well,
many like
apparently they're
pacing
gonna do a
issues.
remake, so
Yeah, I mean, as long as they only fix the pacing issues and don't do what the live action did and tried to change all of the good shit into bad shit.
yeah.
um,
And apparently they're doing that. Well, apparently the reason that some people are saying is because like, oh, the people who got into One Piece because of the live action, like
I
it'll be
mean, they
good to
may
get
have
into
an
the
they
anime.
may have announced it as part of the hype cycle, but I don't know. I don't think they started pre-production on on that product just because the live action
Oh
came
no no
out.
no no! It was more like the people who got into it for the live action. They're if they wanted to get into the anime, then they can like, oh, here's the anime. Like
I mean,
you know, it's like a good starting point,
I mean,
basically.
something like this was probably in the works for longer than that, longer than just what,
Mhm.
3 months, maybe 4 months.
Mhm.
In regards to like rights and licensing issues and getting Oda to agree to it. But in I think more so than live action, it is actually just like good timing to make a remake of One Piece. Because by the time they even get like I would even say like halfway through um the remake, the manga is probably going to be over because it's pretty close
Mhm.
to being over by then, and the anime is trailing not that far behind the manga.
Mhm.
So
Oh, okay.
I think it's good timing to try and make a more quintessential One Piece product that is better than what Toei did, because they don't have to manage the pacing, they don't have to include filler and manage the pacing, so as they,
That's true.
because they already know everything that's upcoming, and they don't have to like not catch too close up to the manga and yada yada yada.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about it like that. But yeah, that's true. But
Um,
I'm not going back and rewatching like that. No, thank you.
I mean, it's probably gonna cut out a solid like 400 episodes, but most of those 400 episodes of material being cut out is probably going to be concentrated in the latter half of the series. Um,
Yeah.
we're not even at the parts that the pacing is very bad at yet.
No. And I feel like the pacing of Skypiea was kind of like, ugh.
I mean, the pacing throughout the first half of the series does have problems that crops up here and there every once in a while. But they do a better job of managing it through the use of filler, because they have like entire filler arcs.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do a better job of managing it after a certain point in the story, because instead of um, writing and coming up with entire arcs to um, save time, or to pace out the time between One Piece arcs, so as to let Oda like continue making more content before they catch
Yeah.
up. Instead, they just take it way slower. It's really a problem for a couple of those arcs.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, we got pretty off topic there for a moment. That's it for live action One Piece this episode of Pirate Odyssey.
Man, once we get to the next episode, okay, maybe we'll maybe the next episode will be shorter.
Maybe. See you guys next time. Peace.